Have you ever shared a deep thought, only to be met with silence, a half smile or a strange look? No direct comment. No argument. But something in the air shifts. It feels like judgment, but no one says anything out loud. If you're an INFJ, this situation might feel familiar. It happens more often than most people realize. INFJs are quiet, thoughtful, and emotional people. They think before they speak. They care deeply. They want real connection. But in a world that often rewards quick answers, bold opinions, and surface-level talk, INFJs stand out. Not in a loud way, but in a way that others notice, even if they don't understand it. And sometimes, instead of open criticism, INFJs get something more subtle, silent judgment. It shows up in changed body language, in side glances, in people pulling away or ignoring their voice. It's not always loud, but it's there. And over time, it can wear the INFJ down. The problem is, INFJs usually sense these things right away. They notice when someone's energy changes. They pick up on facial expressions, tension, or the feeling in a room. They can tell when someone is thinking something, even if they don't say it. And that quiet criticism cuts deep, especially when it comes from people they care about. What's even harder is that it's not always clear why it's happening. INFJs may ask themselves, did I say something wrong? Was I too intense? Did I make someone uncomfortable? They start to second-guess who they are. But the truth is, this silent judgment is less about what they said and more about how different they are from the people around them. This video is about why INFJs face so much silent criticism. Not loud insults, not arguments, but the kind of subtle rejection that leaves them wondering if they truly belong. It's quiet, but it's painful. We'll explore 6 reasons why this happens so often. These reasons have to do with how INFJs speak, how they think, and how they move through the world. They're not weaknesses. In fact, they come from some of the INFJ's deepest strengths. But in a world that often misunderstands quiet power, those strengths can attract the wrong kind of attention. Let's start with the first reason, the one that shows up in nearly every conversation an INFJ has. Reason number 1, speaking too softly in a loud world. INFJs are not loud people. They don't dominate conversations. They rarely interrupt. And when they do speak, they tend to do it gently. They choose their words carefully. They don't shout. They don't push. And while this makes them thoughtful, it also makes them easy to overlook. In today's world, many people respond best to loud voices, to strong opinions, to confidence that shows up in volume. When someone talks fast and loud, people assume they know what they're talking about. They pay attention, even if that person isn't saying anything new or useful. But when someone like an INFJ speaks quietly and with care, others may miss their point. Or worse, they may assume the INFJ is unsure or weak. This misunderstanding is one of the main reasons INFJs face silent criticism. People don't always say it out loud, but the judgment is there. Why are they so quiet? Why don't they speak up more? Why do they sound so unsure? These questions float under the surface, unspoken but felt. And it doesn't help that INFJs often pause before they speak. They like to process what they're thinking. They want to say something meaningful, but that pause can seem like hesitation to others. And again, in a fast-moving conversation, that can lead people to ignore the INFJ or dismiss their input entirely. When INFJs do speak, their message often goes deeper than people expect. They bring up emotional insights, long-term thinking, or questions that others weren't ready for. Instead of nodding, people sometimes go quiet. Not because the INFJ was wrong, but because their words made people uncomfortable. That discomfort often turns into silent judgment. The hardest part is that INFJs usually sense this right away. They feel the change in tone. They see the shift in someone's face. They hear the pause that wasn't there before. And even if no one says anything negative, the INFJ walks away knowing something changed. That feeling sticks with them. Over time, this experience makes INFJs second-guess themselves. They may pull back in conversations. They may speak even less. They may stop sharing their deeper thoughts. And while this protects them from judgment, it also keeps them from being fully seen. But it's not about being wrong. It's about being different. INFJs speak in a way that doesn't match what most people are used to. Their calm delivery, deep focus, and quiet tone are misunderstood in a world that equates volume with value. Still, the INFJ's way of speaking is powerful. It just takes the right person to hear it. Reason number 2, being too idealistic and dream-driven. INFJs are natural dreamers. They don't just think about what is, they think about what could be. They imagine a better world. They picture peace, connection, honesty, and purpose. They believe people can grow. They believe society can improve. And they often talk about these ideas with real passion. But not everyone understands this kind of idealism. In a world that values results, deadlines, and profits, INFJs can seem out of touch. People may roll their eyes when an INFJ talks about changing the system or following their passion. They may stay quiet but think, that's not realistic. Or, that's nice, but it's not how the world works. They won't always say it, but their silence speaks volumes. This quiet judgment can be painful. INFJs put their heart into these ideas. When someone doesn't respond, or worse, subtly mocks them, it stings. And because the INFJ can sense unspoken emotions, they feel that judgment clearly, even when no one says a word. It's not that INFJs are naive. They know the world is complex. But they still believe in better. They still hold on to values like fairness, empathy, and honesty. And when they speak from that place, they risk being seen as unrealistic or too sensitive. This idealism shows up in relationships too. INFJs want depth. They want trust, honesty, and emotional connection. They're not interested in surface-level flirting or games. But when they share their relationship standards, they might face silence or teasing. You're asking for too much. People aren't like that. These ideas may not be spoken, but the message is still clear. INFJs also dream big about their life purpose. They want to do something meaningful. They want work that aligns with their values. But in practical circles, that can sound silly. Others may think, just get a job. Be realistic. Again, the criticism may not be spoken, but the tone, the look, or the silence says enough. What hurts the most is that INFJs aren't trying to impress anyone. They're simply sharing what matters to them. But when their values are met with quiet judgment, they often stop sharing. They keep their dreams to themselves. They blend in. They hide what they really want. That's why INFJs often feel unseen. Not because no one listens, but because their real self isn't welcomed. Their ideas challenge comfort zones. Their vision asks others to reflect. And that can lead to silent criticism from people who aren't ready to go that deep. But the INFJ's idealism isn't weakness. It's their strength. And while not everyone will understand it, it's what sets them apart and what the world needs more of. Reason number 3, boundaries misread as secretive or cold. INFJs are private people. They value their personal space, their inner world, and their emotional boundaries. They don't open up quickly. They don't share everything about themselves with just anyone. And when they do speak, they choose their words carefully, often leaving parts of their thoughts unspoken. This kind of boundary is natural for an INFJ. It protects them. It gives them time to understand their own feelings. It helps them avoid emotional overload. But to others, especially those who expect quick closeness, it can come off the wrong way. People may misread an INFJ's quiet nature as distance. They may think the INFJ is hiding something, being secretive, or even judging them in silence. The INFJ isn't doing any of that, but because they're not as open as others expect, silent criticism begins to build. This is especially true in group settings. INFJs tend to hang back. They listen more than they speak. They observe the room before joining in. But while they're quietly processing everything, others may be wondering, why are they so closed off? Do they think they're better than us? Those thoughts are rarely said out loud, but the feeling is clear. In one-on-one relationships, the same thing can happen. An INFJ might take longer to share deep parts of their life. They may need extra time to trust someone. But if the other person is more open or fast-moving, they may feel rejected or left out, and silently blame the INFJ for being distant. What makes it harder is that INFJs often sense this judgment, but they don't know how to fix it without betraying themselves. They don't want to pretend to be more open than they are. They don't want to share things they're not ready to share. So they stay quiet, and the misunderstanding grows. People also mistake INFJ boundaries as emotional coldness. Because INFJs don't always show their feelings on the surface, others might think they don't care. But in reality, INFJs care deeply. They just don't show it loudly. They express it in smaller, more thoughtful ways. The truth is, INFJs don't owe the world full access to their mind or heart. Their privacy, it isn't cold, it's careful. It's how they protect their energy and emotions. But because this isn't the norm in today's share everything culture, it can attract silent criticism from those who expect more outward openness. This misunderstanding is painful for INFJs. They want connection. They want to be understood. But they also need their space. And when others judge that need in silence, the INFJ feels it deeply and often blames themselves. Reason number 4, discomfort with small talk, seen as snobbery. INFJs are not fans of small talk. Asking how the weather is or what someone had for lunch might feel natural to others, but to an INFJ, it often feels forced. They don't enjoy talking just to fill silence. They want connection, meaning, honesty. So when a conversation stays on the surface, INFJs may quietly drift away. But when they do, people notice. And they don't always react kindly. To someone who loves casual chatter, the INFJ's silence can seem rude. Why aren't they talking? Are they judging me? Do they think this conversation is beneath them? These thoughts may never be said out loud, but they shape how the INFJ is seen. Instead of quiet and thoughtful, they get labeled as snobbish or unfriendly. That silent criticism can come from coworkers, acquaintances, even family members. They don't understand why the INFJ doesn't join in. And instead of asking, they assume. That assumption becomes judgment, and the INFJ can feel it, even if no words are spoken. The truth is, INFJs want real conversation. They're not trying to be better than anyone else. They just feel most alive when the topic goes deeper: emotions, purpose, dreams, fears, ideas. But those conversations take time and trust. And in most daily settings, they're not easy to find. So INFJs stay quiet. They nod politely. They smile. But inside, they're longing for something more. And others misread that longing as disapproval. This dynamic shows up a lot in group settings. While others are laughing or chatting easily, the INFJ may stand to the side, unsure of how to join in. Not because they think they're too good, but because they don't know how to fake interest. And when they don't jump in, they're seen as distant, or worse, arrogant. It also happens in workplace settings. INFJs may avoid office gossip or water cooler talk. They may focus more on their work and less on chit-chat. Again, this can be seen as unfriendly, even if the INFJ is simply trying to stay true to themselves. The silent criticism that follows is hard to shake. People don't confront the INFJ, they just slowly exclude them. Or they smile less. Or they stop including them in conversations. And the INFJ, who values connection, feels that shift deeply. What others see as snobbery is actually sensitivity. The INFJ isn't trying to stand apart, they're trying to stay authentic. But that authenticity often clashes with social norms. And it turns into one more reason they face silent judgment in a world built on small talk. Reason number 5. Deep emotional reactions, considered overly sensitive. INFJs feel everything deeply. When something moves them, whether it's a kind word, a harsh comment, a sad story, or a beautiful song, it reaches all the way in. Their emotions aren't light or passing. They're strong, layered, and often overwhelming. But the world doesn't always respond kindly to deep feeling. In many settings, emotional control is valued. People are expected to get over it, move on, or not take things personally. So when an INFJ reacts emotionally to something others see as small, it makes people uncomfortable. Instead of empathy, the INFJ is met with silence, or worse, subtle judgment. They might hear, "You're too sensitive," or "It wasn't a big deal." But more often, no one says anything at all. People just pull back. They don't understand why the INFJ took something so seriously. They don't ask. They just assume. This kind of silent criticism is especially hard for INFJs because their emotional reactions are not just about the moment, they're tied to deeper layers. A small comment may remind them of past pain. A cold tone may make them question their worth. They're not reacting to just what happened, they're reacting to the meaning behind it. When no one acknowledges that and instead pulls away, the INFJ starts to wonder if their feelings are wrong. They may stop expressing emotion. They may try to hide how much things affect them. But inside, the feelings don't go away. Instead of being seen as emotionally aware, they're seen as dramatic. Instead of being praised for their empathy, they're quietly criticized for making a big deal out of nothing. It's hurtful because INFJs aren't trying to create problems. They're simply reacting in a way that feels honest to them. This misunderstanding can cause deep isolation. INFJs want to share their heart. But after being silently judged for it too many times, they start to hold it in. And while they may look calm on the outside, they're carrying emotional weight that others never see. The truth is, INFJs aren't too emotional. They're emotionally aware. They see and feel what others miss. And when those emotions are dismissed or judged in silence, it cuts deep. What INFJs need isn't silence. It's space to feel without being labeled. And when they're given that space, they shine, not just as feelers, but as strong, thoughtful people who understand emotions better than most. Reason number 6, unspoken insight, seen as passive manipulation. INFJs are naturally insightful. They notice things that others miss, emotions behind words, patterns in behavior, and the small details that give away a bigger picture. This ability comes from their introverted intuition, which works quietly but powerfully in the background. It allows them to just know when something is off, even without solid evidence. This insight can be a gift. It helps INFJs give great advice, avoid conflict, and protect themselves from people with bad intentions. But because they don't always explain how they know what they know, it can confuse or unsettle others. And that's when silent criticism shows up again. Imagine being around someone who always seems to know what you're feeling, even when you haven't said it out loud. At first, it might seem interesting. But after a while, some people get uncomfortable. They feel seen in ways they didn't ask for. They may start to wonder, how do they know that? Or, what else do they notice about me? They feel exposed, even if the INFJ isn't trying to expose them. Instead of asking questions or getting curious, these people often judge in silence. They start to pull away. They label the INFJ as strange, intense, or even manipulative. They're always reading into things. They twist words. They make it seem like they know everything. These thoughts rarely get spoken, but they live in the background. The INFJ isn't trying to manipulate. They just pick up on energy and meaning faster than most people. But when they speak up about something that no one else noticed, or ask a deep question that catches someone off guard, it can make others feel vulnerable. And instead of admitting that, they judge the INFJ for being too much. Some people even see this insight as a form of passive control. They were trying to steer the conversation. They're always asking those deep questions to throw people off. In reality, the INFJ is just following their instincts, but when others don't understand those instincts, they feel threatened. This leads to a kind of quiet blame. No arguments, no confrontations, just a shift in energy, a colder tone, less eye contact, a drop in trust. The INFJ feels it all and often blames themselves without knowing why. Over time, this kind of silent criticism makes INFJs hide their insight. They stop speaking up when they sense something. They hold back their questions. They downplay their intuition to avoid making others uncomfortable. But inside, they're still seeing it all and feeling even more alone for not being able to express it. What others see as manipulation is actually emotional intelligence. And what feels like control is often just a quiet attempt to understand. But when that insight is misunderstood, it becomes one more reason the INFJ faces silent judgment. The INFJ doesn't walk through the world loudly. They don't demand attention. They don't push their voice to the front of the room. But they do feel things deeply. They think carefully. They observe more than they speak. And in doing that, they often attract silent criticism. It's not the kind that gets posted online or shouted across a room. It's quiet. It's hidden. But it's just as real. Whether it's their soft voice, their deep values, their boundaries, or their emotional honesty, something about the INFJ way of being makes others stop and think. And sometimes that pause turns into discomfort. That discomfort turns into judgment. And that judgment, unspoken as it may be, finds its way back to the INFJ. But none of these traits are flaws. They are strengths. They are signs of someone who feels before acting, listens before responding, and chooses meaning over noise. And even if the world doesn't always understand that, it doesn't mean the INFJ is wrong for being who they are. If you're an INFJ and you've faced this kind of silent criticism, know this: it's not your fault. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not broken. You are simply different in a world that often doesn't know how to handle depth, softness, and quiet insight. And if you care about someone who is an INFJ, try to see the space between their words. Don't rush to judge what they don't say. Their silence holds more than you think. And their calm isn't emptiness, it's care. Silent criticism may follow the INFJ, but understanding can break its hold. Awareness can change the story. And compassion, for self and others, can bring the peace that INFJs so often give to everyone else.